Well, good afternoon. This is the Committee on Education. Today's date is February the 4th. It's 2:00 p.m. and this is conference room 309. We have several bills on our agenda today, but first, a bit of housekeeping. So we will institute the 2-minute time schedule, and that's to allow for each testifier an opportunity to do so. Please remember to keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, if the members have questions, then we will ask you and then you unmute yourself. Also, of course, if you're testifying, take yourself off mute. The Zoom chat will be for technical issues as it relates to the members. It will not be used for anything else. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin. If you are disconnected while presenting testimony, then please do your best to reconnect. We will move on, but if we have time to do so, we will come back to you. And in the event that there is a catastrophic network failure, we may unfortunately need to reschedule. If that happens, then we will, of course, go through the normal committee posting process. And it should go without saying, please no profanity. That's all I have for housekeeping. So without further ado, we will get started on HB 1220 relating to charter schools. And our first testifier is the Charter School Commission providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. This is Yvonne Lau, the Interim Executive Director for the State Public Charter School Commission. We did submit written testimony, so I will not repeat what we have written, but I did want to point out a couple of areas that we did have concerns with the bill, specifically Section 3, page 7 and 8. The bill seeks to delete this portion of the statute. And I did want to point out that it will create a conflict with our statutory functions. The Commission cannot provide technical support to applicants and prospective charter school applicants and then be sitting in decision-making mode to decide whether or not to approve them. So the provision that's there is pretty self-explanatory, and we would have some concerns, serious concerns with the elimination of that portion of our statute. Secondly, Section 3, page 9 and 10, again, the proposal is to eliminate the prohibition of members of a nonprofit organization from serving on an applicant governing board that it is associated with. We've had issues of conflict of interest in the past. Having good charter school governance is the heart of a well-run and high-quality public charter school. And unfortunately, these are the kinds of things that have happened, and so much so that we've had actually guidance letter issued from the Hawaii Ethics Commission explaining some of the concerns and the issues that have arisen in the past. So that is something also that we have concerns about. Lastly, with respect to the changes in sections 4 and 5, we've actually offered some amendments to the bill that we believe will address some of the confusion that was raised, unfortunately, this past year with some of our applicants. And we hope that we can work together with the committee, our stakeholders, and our charter schools in moving this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Next on our testifiers list, we have Kulia Academy testifying in support. Kulia Academy.
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Representative Woodson and members of the committee. I will speak in favor of the bill. First of all, thank you so much for this bill. I think it is very helpful. I submitted a written testimony. I was going to touch upon a couple of these things again, but I decided to say something else, and I would be a little unprepared for what I'm going to say. When it comes to asking questions to the Charter School Commission, oftentimes, as applicants, I am with Kulia Academy, and Kulia Academy is a applicant group. We first submitted in 2018, just a feedback. We need some clarification questions. We don't want Charter School Commission to write our proposal, but some things are subject to interpretation. Some things need clarification. We do need some questions to be answered. We don't want to write them our proposal, but certain things need to be answered. So I do want to, I guess, express my opinion on this matter, that it is important for us to be able to ask certain questions for clarification purposes. I think that's important. And on all other regards, I think we express our full support for all the changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Arabaki, for being here. Next on our testifiers list, we have individual testimony from Mr. Jarts, providing individual testimony in support. Okay, not present. Moving on. We also have testimony from Kaimi, individual testimony in support. Kaimi, we have no last name here. Is Kaimi here?
Aloha, yes, this is Kaimi. I'm in support of HB 1220. I really believe this would help streamline and make it better for applicants and allow a more diverse portfolio for the state. I really urge that you push this forward. And my bigger goal is that that you increase authorizers is an idea that I think would be benefit for a lot of these our neighbor island schools that are trying to get applications through the door, through the process that is very overwhelming. So I'm just giving you my support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaimi, for being here. Next, we have Chelsea Evans providing testimony in support. Not present. Thank you. We have late testimony from Rana Boone providing testimony in support.
Okay. Aloha, and thank you, Chair Woodson and Vice Chair Capella and all representatives here for supporting quality education in Hawaii. I represent Maui Academy of Arts and Sciences, which is a proposed charter school for the North Shore and upcountry communities of Maui. And I am a two-time applicant who has yet to make it through this very cumbersome application process. I support all recommendations within House Bill 1220. And specifically, I'd like to request that changes to the current application be put into place quickly. We are now 3 years past the last time that this Charter Commission has reviewed applications in full. And before that, it was a 2-year waiting time before we could apply. The role of the commission is to be facilitators of approving high quality charter schools. And my experience in the last 2 application cycles is that they have been operating as gatekeepers. Myself and many of the other applicants have met obstacle after obstacle. And this bill looks to remove many of those obstacles and streamline the process so that we can provide these high quality schools that our students and our communities deserve. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. And we also have testimony from Waimea Middle Public Charter School in support. And we have testimony in support from West Hawaii Explorations Academy. We have testimony in support from Ka'ana La'ahana Public Charter Schools in support. We also have testimony from about 2.5 dozen individuals, all in support. Is there anyone else here or on the Zoom call that wants to testify that hasn't done so as of yet on HB 1220? Seeing and hearing none, members, questions? Vice Chair Capella.
Thank you so much, Chair. My question is for the Charter School Commission, Yvonne. I have a question on how many colleges or government agencies have applied for chartering authority under the current law?
Colleges and other counties.
Government agencies that have
Government
applied.
agencies, no one from those jurisdictions have applied to authorize. Well, I guess the question, if you're talking about additional authorizers, that question would be to the Board of Education because they're the folks that authorize authorizers. So the commission we fall under the Board of Education's jurisdiction. So that would be something that I think you'd have to ask the Board of Education on because we don't authorize other authorizers, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess is someone from BOE on that could speak to that?
We didn't have testimony from you.
Okay. And then I guess one more question. Would this measure then allow like for-profit colleges to serve as charter school authorizers? And then secondly, and relatedly, do county agencies have or I guess whoever might end up becoming an authorizer, would they then have the educational expertise to have like administrative capacity to serve as charter school authorizers?
So I'm sorry, Vice Chair. I guess that question again would have to go to the Board of Education because they have a process by which they it's a similar, like you would apply to be an authorizer of charter schools, and they have an entire process that they've set up. I believe they ran an RFP last, I don't know, maybe it was 2019.
Okay.
And I don't have that information, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Okay, I have a question for the commission, Director Lau,
Yes.
for being here. If you can just quickly, because I think there is some confusion on the process in its totality, can you quickly just very succinctly go into the highlights as to how one would go about to become a charter school in the state of Florida?
Sure. The commission releases a request for proposal. There's a time frame in which schools would apply. They would initially submit an intent to apply, and that simply explains to us who they are. And then under the statute, there's requirements for who can apply to be a charter school. There's that intent to apply process. This year, our RFP process was intended to be a two-step process. First was the intent to apply piece, and then once they qualify in, the commission would then review their applications based on their strategic. The commission has written into the RFP some priority areas that they're looking for. And then once the commission makes that decision, the schools would then be invited to apply or to write a full application explaining their model, what population they're serving, their curriculum, and all of the other things that come with applying for a charter school. That in a nutshell is what happens. Unfortunately, this year or this round of the RFP was last year. We released it in March of last year, and that happened to coincide with the COVID-19 emergency where everything was shut down. The commission did put into their RFP that there was a possibility that we might have to cancel it given whatever was happening with the pandemic. When the state did shut down, the commission did take up the issue and decided rather than to cancel, they suspended the process, and they really did not want to take away the opportunity for the applicants that applied. Unfortunately, when we start an RFP process, we cannot, once that process starts, we cannot answer any more questions because that it's the time when folks have to write their applications and staff and other members of the commission are reviewing that information. So part of the trouble that happened this past cycle was that suspension put a hold on everything. And although what normally would happen if we had run the entire process through, it would have been a couple of months of, we would wait for the applications to be written. And yes, they are substantial. There's a lot of questions. Running a public school is not something that is to be taken upon lightly. So there are a lot of questions. There's a capacity interview. We have oftentimes external evaluators that come in and help the commission interview the applicants, make sure that they have the capacity to run a public school. That recommendation is then put in front of the commission. We actually have a public hearing for each applicant where the members of the public also are invited in to provide testimony or support or whatever they may have to say about the proposed school. Commission will then review all of that information and make a decision. They will vote up or down on the application. And then thereafter, after that decision is made, if the applicant is denied a charter application, we provide that information it's a written statement to the denied applicant. They are free to appeal that decision to the Board of Education. And then for our charter schools that are approved, there is a pre-opening process before they open their doors. So a lot of times it takes a lot of effort in terms of the facilities, finding a place. securing the lease, hiring the personnel. Sometimes it takes longer than a year. So we have pushed that startup process to a 2-year process. And we've done that only because approved charter applicants have had difficulty securing facilities, and we didn't want them to lose that approval and then have to come back and reapply. So Commission actually has extended that time frame for another 2 years after the approval for them to start their school. So it is a lengthy process, and there's a lot of things that come with it. But that is, in a nutshell, I'm probably leaving out a lot of information in between, but that's what happens. So for this past cycle, we actually literally are still in a suspended mode. We have a number of applicants still waiting. So that's the process.
Thank you. And so what if the commission staff actually, because per some of the testimony that we're hearing that we consider, we're trying to find a common ground, a middle ground, if you will. And what if there was language in this proposal that said commission staff could assist applicants with the approval process, and you would, the commissioners themselves would be involved primarily in the approvals or denials?
So part of the challenge with the commission's statutory mission really is they have to sit and the commission staff assist them with that. We are primarily we have to make sure that we authorize high quality schools. So that's why there's a provision in the statute that talks about the technical assistance. And I don't want you to get the idea that we don't talk to the applicants. We do provide an orientation session. We have a number of sessions that we talk to them about the process. And up until that point, we can answer as many questions as we can. And then, but once that RFP starts, that's when really there's only one person they can contact if they have questions or whatnot. But, you know, there are a lot of times in other jurisdictions, there are networks of charter schools that assist people who want to start up charter schools. But I guess it would be difficult for the commission to take on the role of both providing that kind of technical assistance, or how do you start up a school, that kind of thing, and then also have to hold them accountable or make decisions like whether or not, you know, they have the capacity, or whether or not this proposal is the right proposal for a particular community in our state. So, yeah.
Do you as the director make that determination, or do you present all the information to the commissioners and the commissioners ultimately have to decide?
Right, the commissioners make the decision. I'm just part of the staff. I have a recommendation that I make, but I am not the decision maker in that process.
Okay, and per your testimony with regards to section 4 and 5, you in essence mentioned a potential remedy with regards to the pre-application process.
Right.
You do not speak to the nonprofit organization board members also potentially having the opportunity to serve as governing board affiliates at the actual charter school. You stated in your testimony that there are some challenges with that. Can you give a specific example as to
Sure. Sure. So there have been nonprofit organizations that want to start charter schools, and that's fantastic. That's not a problem. The challenge we have is in our statute, it talks about you cannot have the same members of that nonprofit governing board sitting on a charter school applicant governing board, because potentially they become a state agency. So every time we authorize a public charter school, we are authorizing a state agency. And so there are challenges and conflicts that arise when they continue on in their role as a governing board member, and they are also sitting on the associated nonprofit. And I'll give you an example of what may happen. We have a number of schools that have an associated nonprofit by which they are renting facilities from. And so that nonprofit is also determining what the lease rents are. And if they're sitting both on the nonprofit board and then also the school's governing board, there is a potential for a conflict of interest. So that, I think that's what the statute, that's why there's that prohibition that you cannot be one and the same. you can have people that, have worked in the nonprofit, but cannot sit on the nonprofit board if they're going to be associated with the school or the applicant. So that is I think our concern is that we have had situations in the past with existing charter schools where we've had this conflict come up. And I believe the statute kind of anticipates and sort of helps to prevent that from happening by basically saying a nonprofit can apply, but the members of the applicant governing board cannot be the same members of the nonprofit governing board, if that makes sense.
If there are any conflicts or perceived conflicts, can't the governing board operate within the constructs of Robert's rules and request a recusal if they feel that there's a conflict that could present itself?
I think that's possible, but I think unfortunately, because of the issues that have come up before, and I guess I'd refer you to the Hawaii Ethics Commission to follow up on some of the challenges. But I did attach the guidance letter as a link to our testimony, and in their guidance letter, it kind of explains all of the situations that can arise.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Brett Hashimoto.
I guess this question is for Yvonne. I guess what is the deciding factor of going through that RFP process that you believe is a rigid process that they have to apply and then you can't talk within? Is that's through HRS? Or is that through admin rules or is that?
It's national best practices. That's how the process has been run in the past. Once the RFP starts, we can't continue to answer questions or, it's basically their time to write their application. We have an orientation session at the very beginning. We explain all of the different parts and procedures.
I guess goes back to my question. So is that in your rules somewhere or is that?
It's not in our rules, it's in our RFP. So it's written in the request for proposal.
So are you wedded to the RFP process or is that something that you're willing to?
We have adjusted the RFP process every year that we have done this because we have learned over the years of what worked and what didn't. And a lot of times the commissioners have tried to adjust the process to actually make it easier, or, in some cases we used to have the two-step process, what we call a two-step process, where they would do an initial review of a shorter proposal to save the applicants additional time from writing a full proposal. So we've done that before. We've tried to work it every single time. And I do want to let you know that at the end of every RFP, we have always offered to meet with the applicants that did not get approved. And then we sit with them and we go through, here's what happened.
As you haven't looked at other ways to do the application process other than the RFP process. That's the only way that you're going to stick to it, and that's the only way that you're going to do it then.
I think it's just words. Request for proposal versus an application process. If you want to call it an applications process, we can.
I guess my point is obviously there's a problem, right? That the process that you have in place isn't conducive to, from what I'm hearing, isn't conducive to really what the applicants are needing. And I find it confusing that you won't really look at other processes. At least you can tell us, we look at other ways.
Rep. Hashimoto, we are willing to look at any other process that's out there. That's not what we're trying to say. I do think that, as I said, the commissioners, every single RFP process has looked to improving the process. Now, the other half of this is, it is not just the commissioners, but we have had external reviewers that have experience running schools, providing feedback, providing evaluation on the applications. And that is some of the recommendations that came back. Commissioners make their decision based on all of that input. I can't tell you why we haven't authorized more schools, but at the same time, the commission needs to make sure that they are authorizing folks that that have the capacity to run a public school, and that's what they've done. I think we are absolutely willing to consider other ways of reviewing applicants. We have not said that we're not willing to do that. So I appreciate your feedback, and we look forward to adjusting as we have every year.
Okay. No, thank you, Chair. I think this bill is probably a little message to that you probably have to look into a little bit more. So hopefully you will do that, and hopefully we'll get this.
Message received. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative DeCoy.
Thank you, Chair. Yvonne.
Yes, Rep.
Yvonne, let me unmute you, sir.
So is there any other board that have the same type of appointment process?
Sorry, are you talking about the members of the commission and how they're appointed? I honestly don't know. I'm sure that there are other boards that the governor does have. He has boards and commissions office that appoints a number of different boards, but I wouldn't. I'm sorry, I'm not the expert on that.
My second question is, would DOE still have a role in this, and what is the fiduciary responsibility?
Are you referring to the applications process or the board appointment process?
Board appointment process.
I'm sorry.
The board appointment process.
I believe currently the way it works is that the Board of Education appoints the commissioners. So the bill is seeking to change that to, I think, the governor and the president of the Senate and a number of different legislative appointments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, moving on. Thank you.
Thank you.
To HB 10 board BOE membership and the potential addition for a non-voting teacher. First up, we have is Hawaii State Ethics Commission providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bonita Chang, Staff Attorney with the Hawaii State Ethics Commission. We stand on our written comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have HSTA and support.
Okay, there it goes.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. HSTA, first of all, good afternoon, Chair Woodson, members of the Education Committee, Corey Rosenlee, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. HSTA strongly supports this bill. Any deliberative body's goal should be to make the best decision on available information. The Board of Education works very different than this legislative body. And we have been numerous times, especially during this crisis, where things have been testified to. The Department of Education will share information, and that information will have no challenge. Policy decisions will be made and implemented without asking how that would actually affect classrooms. And I have been on the other side where I've heard this, and I can tell you, not only is it frustrating, but I can see bad policy being done just because the Board of Education has not received proper information. And at the same time, let me go over some of the concerns. Number one, this would not be involved with any type of union issue, and the person would be able to recuse themselves. This would not deal with any labor issues. The person would recuse themselves. But it is frustrating to see that both students and the military are given voices on the decisions of what the board is deciding. But the ones most impacted, our teachers, do not have a voice, especially after testimony has been taken and discussions going on there. So we would ask the House to be able to support this and to be able to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next, we have HDEA and opposition. HDEA here, Joy.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and Education Committee members. My name is Joy Bulasan, testifying on behalf of HGEA Executive Director Randy Pereira and the Hawaii Government Employees Association, AFSCME Local 152 AFL-CIO. We are in opposition of House Bill 10, You have our written testimony before you. However, I'd like to highlight that it is only fair for all school level employees to have representation on the Board of Education. This bill proposes only a non-voting teacher representative from bargaining unit 5, but please keep in mind that there are employees in bargaining units 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 13 at the school level as well. Their perspectives are equally as important. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have individual testimony in support from Lynn.
Hi, I'm Otaguro.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lynn Otaguro. Aloha, Chair Woodson and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. As a former parent, volunteer, teacher, and legal advisor to the schools, my experience has shown me that it is hard to know what goes on unless you're really there. And things often change in the schools, so having someone in the classroom will give you the most accurate picture of what's going on. A teacher representative on the Board of Education will be able to provide this perspective. And as teachers are the ones who are often implementing the board's policies, they will be helpful in discussing implications and likely outcomes of policies. I'm really excited actually to see this bill because it has the opportunity to give the board a more complete picture of what's going on in the schools and help them to understand what's, to see the problems or, the possibilities of what they are hoping to enact. By giving the board this insight, this bill will help to provide better understanding of schools and operations and hopefully lead to better decisions. So I ask your support of HB 10. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony over Zoom? Okay, we also have testimony from the Board of Education providing comments. Democratic Party of Hawaii Education Caucus in support. Hawaii Association for School Psychologists in support. And testimony from 2 individuals in support. Members, questions? Go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Dulasan.
Yes, Rep. Kanaden.
Yeah, good afternoon. Would you be amenable to a modification of the bill that allowed for a representative on the board that is a non-administrator HGEA employee of the school? So to basically just expand it by one other person, or I'm assuming that you're thinking of not excluding employees who are not teachers but not administrators, the kinds of people who do groundskeeping, the kinds of folks who make the school run, which these are the kinds of people that had to go to work throughout the pandemic as well. So would you be amenable to something like that, to expanding
We would. I know it would be very unwieldy if there were multiple bargaining units and one representative for each unit, but that would be a start.
So just one? Or would
Well,
you like
ideally, we have so many different classifications. HGA alone represents over 7,000 employees and dozens of different classifications, from head custodians to school administrative, office staff, your principals, who have to run the school, your school administrative team. You also have athletic trainers, school psychologists. So it'd be very difficult to have one, but we can look at how that would look like, I guess, if it was a HGA representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Chair. Representative Ducoy.
Thank you, Chair. So Ms. Bolasan, how many would be on total add-on if we were to add it on of representation?
There are 6 other bargaining units, Unit 1 for UPW, and HGA has 5 other units.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Okay, I have a question for HGEA. kind of an expansion on Representative Flanagan's inquiry. And so when you look at education, the primary variable that impacts learning is the teacher. And so arguably it makes sense to have a representative, non-voting representative on the board that can speak to the intricacies of that issue. The second variable that impacts learning, arguably again, is the administrator, principal and vice principal. And so what if we added non-voting members as a teacher and an administrator? Because those two components impact learning so dramatically. Would that be something that you will be agreeable to?
We would be more amenable to that because especially during the pandemic, the principals had to bear a lot on their shoulders in terms of having to pivot, make decisions, even without much communication from the state and complex area levels. So yes, we would want the committee to consider that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions?
One for
Representative Gunningham.
Thank you, Chair. Directed to Mr. Rosalie. I'm noting, let's see, page 3, line 10. The session laws of Hawaii 2011 were amended after Furlough Fridays, which was the last real big crisis that kind of faced statewide in regarding education and legislature's interaction with teachers. Was a request made back then, I don't know if you know, to have a teacher on this board, or has it been kind of an ongoing issue, or?
This was primarily brought up after we went from an elected board to an appointed board. And at that point, it was decided that, it was very evident from sometimes board discussions, both the lack of conversation and the need to be receptive to others because they were not being voted for. And so at the time, this is what arose from that, is that it needed to have that voice. So it's relatively new.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 225, BOE Bullying Response Plan. First up we have is Department of Education providing comments.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. I'm Heidi Armstrong from the Department of Education, and we stand on our written testimony supporting the intent of House Bill 225, and we respectfully offer the comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's all we have on our testifiers list that is present per Zoom. We also have testimony from the Board of Education providing comments, Hawaii Disabilities Rights Center in support. And we have testimony from 2 individuals, both in support. Anyone else here wishing to provide testimony via Zoom? Seeing none, members, any questions? Representative Gunningham. Or Department of Education, please.
Yes, apologies, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm noting your concern about being able to pay for this. But should this move forward, would the board be interested in learning more about and pursuing best practices regarding cyberbullying, the kinds of bullying that a lot of young people experience now, which is online?
I'm sorry, are you asking, would we report on cyberbullying? I didn't understand your question, I'm sorry.
I'd like you to speak to it. So, so yes, reporting, expanding the definition of bullying to include cyberbullying.
We do have in our Chapter 19 guidelines, and we revised them in school year 17-18 to go in effect school year 19, last school year 19-20. And we do have a definition of cyberbullying that includes which I can read to you, means electronically transmitted acts, including but not limited to those transmitted through the internet, cell phone, or other wireless handheld device initiated by one student toward another student or employee of the department that hurts, harms, humiliates, or intimidates the student or employee and is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that it creates an intimidating, threatening, or abusive educational environment. And then it goes on to tell when it can, it can occur on campus, off campus using a department issued device.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Representative. And may I please ask the testifiers, I know it's difficult and we are getting acclimated to this new technology, but even for myself, I had to remind myself to speak into the microphone. And if you can please turn your volumes all the way up so we can hear what you're saying. It's very important that we hear the information that you're providing. Thank you so much. Members, any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Representative, go ahead. Vice Chair, excuse me.
Once again for DOE, Heidi. Good afternoon. I guess what student populations are most frequently bullied in public schools, according to the DOE's most recent data? If you have that.
We collect the number of incidences per year. We also break it down by ethnicity, and it's our data includes by ethnicity, and we have extensive data in our database on that. Gosh, I can't say that there's one overall ethnicity that is being bullied more, but I can report at another time the numbers.
That would be great. Thank you. No questions, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any additional questions for HB 225? Thank you so much, Department of Education and others. Moving on to HB 372, Audit of DOE Act-Pen Plan. First up, we have is the Department of Education providing comments.
Hi. Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, members of the committee. Brian Hallett, CFO for the Department of Education, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto. The department stands on its written testimony with comments. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. That's all we have on our testifiers list. Is there anyone else here who wants to testify via Zoom? Okay. We also have testimony from the Office of the Auditor providing comments, Maui Chamber of Commerce in support, and one testimony from Cheryl E., individual in support. Members' questions? Any questions? I have a question for CFO Hallett. Thank you again for being here. I know at least we're hearing that in the recent past, not all schools have active school community councils, and some schools we're hearing altogether don't have that component in place. As you indicated in your testimony, this is statutorily prescribed. What is the remedy for if in fact a school doesn't have a active or non-existent SCC? And does the department have data on how many school campuses do not have active SCCs?
I do not have that information at this time, but we can obtain it for you. There's another office that helps support the school community councils, and I would consult with them for that information.
Okay, thank you so much. If you get that to us. Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 515, DOE Food Service Audit and Local Production. First up, we have is the Department of Education Facilities Branch providing testimony and support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. My name is Randy Tanaka. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Operations. We stand by our testimony. Thank you very much. Aloha.
Thank you, A. Tanaka. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony via Zoom? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to HB HB 525, DOE, and teacher housing. First up, we have again A.S. Tanaka providing testimony for the Department of Education and support.
Hello, Chair Woodson. Hello, Vice Chair Capella. Randy Tanaka, Office of Facilities and Operations. We stand by our testimony. I think you should also know that we are also exploring at non-DOE real estate to provide and build teacher housing. One in the more optimistic view is at Lahaina Luna. We're working through that now, but we stand by our testimony. Aloha.
Thank you so much for that. That's all we have on our list. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony? Seeing and hearing none. Members, are there any questions? Seeing and hearing none. Moving on to HB 610, DOE and Community Gardens. We have DOE OSID providing testimony, providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent with the Department of Education, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Christina Kishimoto. We stand by a written testimony and offer comments on HB 610. The department is deeply committed to wellness and to AINA-based education. Schools already have the authority under board policies for curriculum, as well as respect to facilities to develop gardens on school properties. And the vast majority of our schools already have gardens in place. The department is concerned about safety implications of having community gardens on school property, where possible dangerous strangers may have access to the campus and be in close proximity with students. So thank you for allowing us to testify on this matter. We are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Next on our list, we have individual testimony and support from Janice Hill. Janice here? Okay, we will move on for now. We have individual testimony also from two other people in support. And one more additional individual providing testimony also in support. Anyone here wishing to provide testimony via Zoom? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair Capella.
I guess the question would be for DOE. Personally, I really love this bill, and I think that we need, especially as we move towards really shaping the next generation of local farmers, I think something like this is incredibly beneficial. So my question is, if you folks have an idea of how many school gardens might be operating on neighbor islands, and if there are any operating on Hawai'i Islands.
Thank you for that question. And I apologize about my camera. It's not going on. But we have information that 87% of the schools, but we'll have some type of gardening, but we will need to get back to you to report how many are on the neighbor islands.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, we have back an individual. Is it Janice still? Ushijima, if you are here
yes.
and you're ready to testify, please do so.
I'm sorry, we're on House Bill 1223.
No, we are still on 610.
Oh, we're still on 610. And I'm sorry, what is your question?
Quick recess.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Mrs. Ujijimi, we apologize. We actually did receive your testimony. We had some technical issues. So we are okay. Thank you for your.
Thank you very much.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 1223, Department of Education and Industry Credentialing. First up, we have is the Department of Education providing comments.
Aloha again, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto. The department supports the intent of HB 1223, and we stand on our written testimony noting that resources will be needed to modify existing data collection systems to collect the information being requested in the bill. So thank you for this opportunity to testify, and we are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ushijima. Next, we have the University of Hawaii providing comments. UH here. Okay, moving on to Hawaii Kids Can, providing testimony.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, we're going to go back to the University of Hawaii. Go ahead.
My apologies. Thank you, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and the committee. I'm the State Director for Career and Technical Education, Bernadette Howard, and I'm testifying in favor of this bill, but we do have comments. The bill is asking for the State Board for CTE to provide the report to the Ledge and to the Governor. That is the Board of Regents, and I am the operational person for the Board of Regents for this work. So that's why I'm speaking on behalf of this. We already provide a governor's report annually on the work of CTE. So adding an additional data point is not the difficulty. The difficulty is getting that data point. I would encourage the committee to look at the Promising Credentials report that was done by a group included P20, Kamehameha Schools, Chamber of Commerce, and Castle Foundation. And last October, they completed this report. We had to first was identify which credentials are we going to be measuring. There are myriad credentials, and we needed to make sure that they were credentials that would have value in Hawaii and that our employers would support. And so they have come up with a list of 137. Now we're taking those credentials and we're embedding them in the programs being offered at the high schools, the community colleges, and in the workforce system. What Assistant Superintendent Shijima just mentioned is one of the areas of concern for us. Is we can't, any of us, do this in isolation. We all have to be measuring the same things in the same way in order to be able to do a statewide report. It's going to take us more time than being able to establish and then track the metrics. We won't have that done by July of 2022. It's a P20 endeavor. It's going to have to cover all of the workforce agencies and the DOE and the community colleges and probably the university 4 years as well. So we have work groups already addressing this. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of process and protocols that have to be developed and identified before we can actually do the measures. It is being done. It will continue to be done. What we ask is that we get that this bill be amended. Respectfully ask that it be amended to make the first report on this to the governor and to the legislature for July of 2023, although we could do an interim in between if you wanted. And there is also a concern on our part of the data security issues need to be addressed a little more carefully in the wording of this bill. Data security, data agreements between the agencies and across agencies are critical, and those take a lot of time and legal expertise to get them right. So I'm open to any questions that you have. Thank you for this opportunity to reemphasize this the work that is already being done and encourage you to look at the Promising Credentials report that was sent out and put out by P20 in October of last year.
Thank you, Director. That report is articulated in several of the testimonies. Moving on to Hawaii Kids Can, providing testimony in support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. I'm David Miyashiro with education advocacy organization Hawaii Kids Can. We stand on our written testimony and strong support. We did want to reemphasize that quality career readiness programs in our schools can help fuel Hawaii's economic recovery. However, schools, legislators, and partners need quality data in this time of limited resources. Students deserve opportunities that will help boost their real career prospects, especially in a difficult job market. The excellent credentialsmatter.org website shows which states are. This means credential attainment is matched with real local demand. Yet Hawaii is only one of 14 states without the data to even be listed on that website. This is an important and a common sense fix. HB 1223 is a strong foundation for all students to have a fair chance to graduate ready to work in Hawaii, pursue their dreams, and afford to keep their talents here in the islands. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miyashiro. That's all I have on my testifiers list in terms of testifying via Zoom. We also have testimony from the Attorney General's office providing comments, Hawaii P20 providing testimony in support. We have Chamber of Commerce providing testimony in support. That's Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. And we have testimony in support from 2 individuals. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on this proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to the next bill, the final bill on the agenda, HB 690, Department of Education proposed CONAM DOE efficiency. First up, we have on our list is the Department of Education providing comments.
Good afternoon again, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. Again, Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto. We stand by our written testimony in support of the measure's intent. We thank the legislature for your interest in providing for a statewide public school system that is thorough and efficient, and for acknowledging the challenges we have had in teacher recruitment and retention, maintaining our school facilities, and addressing the educational inequities amongst our students, which have been exacerbated by the current pandemic. We appreciate your support in addressing these challenges. I'm available here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have testimony from HSTA, providing testimony in support.
Thank you, Chair Woodson, members of the Education Committee. HSTA strongly supports HB 690, proposing amending the state constitution. The way we fund education in Hawaii is both fundamentally and systemically broken. Hawaii is the only state where the counties do not have to pay anything for education and at the same time get all the property taxes. This has led Hawaii to have the least percentage of state and local taxes that go to education compared to any other state in the country. And at the same time, Hawaii is just one of the few states that does not have a constitutionally protected right of education enshrined into their state constitution. So not only do we not have a proper way of funding education in Hawaii, but at the same time, there's no legal remedy to protect our keiki and their education. We are now facing, for the second time in nearly 10 years, huge budget cuts to education and pay cuts and furloughs for its teachers. The furloughs of 10 years ago directly led to the teacher shortage crisis that we are still facing. The constitutional amendment before you today gives the people of Hawaii an opportunity to vote for their children and for the right of education to be enshrined into Hawaii's state constitution. The bill before you would add the words thorough and efficient into Hawaii state constitution when it comes to education. Those words, thorough and efficient, are already in 6 other state constitutions, and either word is found in 7 other state constitutions. HSTA asks that you give the people of Hawaii the right to vote on whether or not they want to constitutionally protect their keikis education and their future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have the Hawaii Iron Workers Stabilization Fund providing testimony in support. Connor Parrish. Mr. Parrish here. Thank you. Next, we have testimony from, that's all we actually have on our testifiers list in terms of being available to testify via Zoom. We also have testimony from Hawaii, Democratic Party of Hawaii, Education Caucus providing testimony support. Democratic Party of Hawaii State Central Committee, Education Caucus Representative providing testimony support. ILWU providing testimony support. Parents for Public Schools Hawaii providing testimony support. And we have individual testimony from about a half dozen people, all in support, with one individual providing testimony, offering comments. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony via Zoom? Thank you. Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, recess for decision making. Recess. Thank you. Thank you, members. Reconvening for decision making on several bills. The first one we have is HB 1220, Charter Schools Authorizers and Authorities. Chair is going to propose several changes. First, on page 1, under section 1, by statute 302D-3, paragraph 1, subsection C, we want to strike out the lines 5 through 10. I'm recommending that we keep the appointment process similar to that of how we hire the superintendent, and the current process is more consistent with that type of consistency. So we will strike out that language. Moving on, also, we will take out any language with regards to appointing authorities to conform with the first recommendation. And that's found on pages 1, 3, and 4. On page 5, members, we will take out the provision that gives other state agencies and the county the authority to establish charter schools. On page 7, members, if you go down to lines 19 through 21, and then in the next page through lines 1 through 6, we want to still have the authorizers not facilitate the application process, but we would like for staff, actually any staff, to provide technical assistance as it relates to applications and the review process. Similarly, on page 14, the language around specification for denials, if there's any missing documentation, we want to allow for the commission staff to help out with that process. Moving on to page 12, lines 1, we will strike out the word statutory. I believe that there is already language in this bill that speaks to that particular issue. Onto page 15, lines 14, we will delete the language that indicates that the lack of written notice means that an application is approved. That language is a little bit too rigorous. Then on page 18, we'll take out lines 7 through 17 with regards to the commission being penalized. We believe that there are legal mechanisms within the constructs of laws that will also address that issue. Finally, on page 19, members, again, consistent with the rest of the language, with regards to new authorities and additional authorizers, we will also take that language out. Besides that, defecting the effective date July 1st, 2050, and technical non-substantive changes. Members, questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 1220, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Belatti? Aye. Representative DeCoit? Aye. Representative Ganadin?
Aye.
Representative Gates?
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto?
Aye.
Representative Ono? Excused. Representative Quinlan? Aye. Representative Takayama? Aye. Representative Yamane?
Aye.
Representative Okimoto? Reservations, please. Chair, your measure has been adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 10, BOE membership composition, teacher non-voting member. Members, I would like to pass this with the HT1, defecting the effective date to July 1st, 2050. Also, I've spoken to the introducer, the primary introducer, and she has agreed to add language around also adding a non-voting member that is a administrator. So one non-voting member that's an administrator as well. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 10, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Members, are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 225, BOE and bullying prevention response plan. To continue the discussion, I would like to pass this, simply defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 225, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 372, DOE audits and action plans, effective date July 5th, July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 372, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Members, are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to, where are we? HB 515, local food purchasing. We'd like to be effective date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 515, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 252, DOE teacher housing. Defective date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns?
Chair,
Representative DeCoy.
I'm concerned with this bill. One is rural areas that it applies to. My question, why I have issues with the less than 6 years. Also on issues of, is it charter school teachers as well? And or just DOE and the low cost to no cost for teachers.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Members, any questions, comments, or concerns?
Chair, this is for HB 525. Is that what we're on? 525.
We are on HB 525,
Okay.
teacher
Thank you.
housing. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 525, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Are there any reservations?
Reservation.
Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 610, DOE and community gardens. Per the department's testimony, there appears to be gardening happening at the DOE that's driven really by the school and community level, so therefore we will refer this bill. Moving on to HB 1223, DOE and industry credentials. Per the AG's testimony, with regards to proper data sharing, members, I would like to add section 2, provision that states that all data sharing will be conducted in a mannerism that's consistent with applicable state and federal laws governing privacy and confidentiality. I would also like to add an amendment. I would also like to make sure that this amendment is specifically mentioned in the committee report. Also, per the testimony, I would like to move the implementation date to July 1st, 2023. With regards to the data sharing component, defecting the effective date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 1223, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to the last bill, HB 690, DOE efficiency, proposed CONAM. I'd like to pass this for the HD 1, defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns, members? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 690, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Are there any reservations? Any noes?
No vote.
Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Adjourned.